Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cancer Support Community Central Ohio's Natural Living Workshop with community herbalist Lily Kunning. We're very excited that she's able to join us from the mountains of West Virginia to continue to provide this fabulously educational class. And I am going to continue to keep an eye on the chat room. You are always welcome to unmute and ask any questions directly of Lily or use the chat. So welcome, Lily. So glad you're here to talk to us about spring cleaning.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm happy to be here. It's definitely that time of year when you want to open up the windows and get some fresh air in and get all that dirt and dust out of your house. And unfortunately, a lot of the cleaning supplies that we have available to us in the United States are not clean at all. And so what I'm hoping to do is to let you know how to do research, what to look for, and make some alternatives. And so in addition to getting you a copy of this presentation afterwards, there's also a handout that teaches you how to make some basic home solutions from non-toxic ingredients. So that will be available to folks after the fact. And I'm happy to answer questions at any point during the presentation. So let's get started with the next slide. So I'm an herbalist. I was trained as an herbalist back in the early 2000s. So it's been a couple decades now that I have been practicing. I have a clinical practice. I formulate for an apothecary that helps me to do these classes every month. And I just started a little school of folkways. So not only is it going to be herbalism, which is an important folkway, but also chicken keeping and all kinds of fun classes. So if you're interested in that, we can talk about that at the end. It's called Root and Rhizome. All right. So detox is a very loaded word. Unfortunately, it has become on the internet, it has become a code word for weight loss or fasting or, things that really aren't what we're talking about here. When I talk about detoxing your home, I am talking about literally detoxifying what is existing in your home. So that includes cleaning products, it includes appliances, it includes treatments on your furniture, all kinds of things that maybe you haven't thought of that are toxins. And when I say toxin, I mean a carcinogen, I mean an endocrine disrupting chemical, things that actually wreak havoc with our biochemistry, with our bodies. And under normal circumstances, your liver and your lymph are perfectly capable of detoxing what you encounter, what you eat, what gets put on your skin. But unfortunately, Americans don't live under normal circumstances because everything that surrounds us has not been regulated. We have a toxic load surrounding us that other countries that are comparable to ours, those weird words of developed or Western or whatever you want to call it, industrialized countries actually have government regulations on these chemicals, many of which are banned in those countries, but they're perfectly acceptable here. And they continue to be used because they cheapen products, higher profit margins, things like that. But it has taken a toll on our health collectively as Americans. So what we must do in the United States is educate ourselves and do it ourselves. So that is what this presentation is about. So one of the things that we hear a lot from corporations is, well, none of the ingredients are toxic in the levels in which they appear in the product. But what that does not take into account is all of the products that are out there in our homes and bioaccumulation. Bioaccumulation is when a toxin gets stored in our body, usually in our fat cells, and we just keep getting exposed to more and more. And so your body is taking on a bigger and bigger toxic load because these things should not be in our products to begin with. They are unnecessary. They are not needed to actually do the job that we buy these products for. And so the result has been an ever increasing amount of autoimmune disease, cancer, and neurological problems. We've seen a huge uptick in this, especially in the last 30 years. So another graph, woohoo, graphs of doom. So yeah, so we've just seen such an increase, 400% since the 50s in these, and that has completely corresponded with the amount of these products that are in our homes, right? In the 50s, recipe books included things for like, surface cleaners and things like that. And that is not the case anymore. People buy them. They buy these products for convenience in plastic bottles, and that is what we use to clean now. And it has definitely correlated with the increase in issues. So, all right. So some of the problems in the United States that have led to this problem is that companies are allowed to do their own research and testing. So what that means is there's no independent body looking at the ingredient list, testing them for carcinogens, testing them for corrosiveness, all of that. Companies do that themselves, and a lot of people aren't aware of that. And they're required to report to the FDA, but often they don't, and it has led to like product recalls and things like that. Or they significantly undercut or they skew the results. But when a company is allowed to police itself, we've had some disastrous results. The FDA does not have the wherewithal in terms of staffing or funding to test everything, each and every claim made to them, nor do they have the inclination, because the FDA, especially the upper echelons of the FDA, have been staffed now by former corporate CEOs and lobbyists, and it has become a political issue when it should be a health issue. That is a government agency that is there to regulate foods and drugs, and that it's supposed to also regulate chemicals, and it is not necessarily doing that job the way that it should be, to the level in which it should be. And go back. Sorry. We actually in this country allow known carcinogens and endocrine disrupting chemicals in our formulas, in our body care, in our home care. And those items are banned in other countries for good reason, but they are allowed in ours. And another thing that happens is, as knowledge like this grows, as people like you come to these classes and arm themselves with knowledge and what to avoid, companies change tactics, and they work their formulas so that they include the toxins that you're trying to avoid in a fragrance, right? A lot of these home cleaners have fragrances that they put out there, like you're supposed to plug in the thing that makes your home stink, and all of that. They put those chemicals that you're trying to avoid in fragrance, because fragrance is considered a proprietary formula in the United States, and companies are not required to disclose what's in their fragrance. Now we can move on. So topical exposure, like if you're cleaning something and you get some of that cleaning solution on your hands, or you breathe it in. So topical exposure is just as important as what you put in your body in terms of food and things like that. We used to think that the skin was a total barrier, and we know now that that's not true, and that we absorb 75 to 90%, depending on what it is, of what you put on your body, whether it's intentionally or accidentally. It gets in your body, and I will show you how that happens. 90% of the products out there, and it says body care, but it's also cleaning supplies. 90% of the products out there have not been evaluated by the FDA. Not even evaluated, much less regulated. And cleaning products aren't food. And so what that means is they're not regulated per se by the FDA. They do regulate individual chemicals. And so there is a list of ingredients that it's very short of what they're not allowed to use. But if it's not on that list, they're free to use it. And you know, they again keep their ingredients, their other ingredients secret in proprietary formulas. But let's talk a little bit about molecular weight. You see here the tennis racket. You're like, why is there a tennis racket in this thing about cleaning? That makes no sense. Just imagine that the grid of the tennis racket is your skin, and the tennis ball is too big to fit through the holes in the racket. This is an idea to sort of explain what a molecular weight is. So a hydrogen atom has a molecular weight of 1 that would easily pass through that grid. Hydrogen can permeate your skin very easily. If the molecular weight is less than 3,000, whatever chemical that is will enter your skin. If it's less than 750, it will enter your cells of the skin. And if it's less than 300, it will enter the bloodstream. Now, lots of chemicals are less than 300, even essential oils. The reason that they work topically is because they have a molecular weight of less than 300, so they immediately just go into the bloodstream. There are a lot of chemicals like that. And so what we're doing is they don't just sit on the skin and maybe absorb a little bit into the skin. A lot of these chemicals, go directly into your bloodstream and travel around your body. And that's what I mean by molecular weight. All right, we can move on. So indoor air pollution in the United States is higher than outdoor air pollution. It's because of the chemicals that are in our homes, from not just cleaning supplies, but also our furnishings, the construction materials that we're allowed to use to build homes. If you look at the picture on the left, you will see a cross-section of skin. And the one on the bottom shows a little trail of these little triangle and rectangle chemicals going in between the cells of the epidermis down through the dermis and directly into the body. This is how the chemicals travel there, and then they permeate the blood vessel and then get into the bloodstream. The picture on the right shows all of these chemicals and how much concentration they have in just dust sitting in our homes. And no matter how clean you are, you're gonna have dust. I just cleaned my house and I'm like, dang, how much stuff is under this sofa? I have animals, so there's a lot of stuff under the sofa. Anyway, what happens is all of these chemicals are ever increasing in our homes. They settle into dust particles, and so when we're cleaning, we're kicking them back up and breathing them in. We get skin exposure when we're cleaning. We get air exposure when we're using things like Teflon pans or appliances that have nonstick coating on them. It off gases, especially when it's heated and it's a carcinogen. And so, we're getting all of these chemicals, breathing them in, getting them on our skin, kicking them up. And it has led to higher pollution in our homes than outside. And that living in that toxic stew creates, year after year, creates problems, developmental hazards for children, reproductive hazards for people of childbearing age, carcinogens, immunohazards, causes immuno and endocrine hazards, cause autoimmune disease. So we're just seeing that all of that, we're just living in this soup. And so we need to take the soup off the stove and chuck it outside. That was a bad metaphor, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. Let's go on to the next slide. So when we're talking about what we can control, because we can't control the companies and what they put in their ingredients, we can't control what is sold out there, but we can control what we bring into our own homes and what we expose ourselves to in our own homes. And that is what I want you to take away from this, this presentation, is that we need to be cautious. So the precautionary principle is like, I don't know if this chemical is bad. it has only been around since, 1976, and we don't have long-term data about this chemical in particular. So why would I bring it in? Right? It's not, well, why not? It's more like, no, let's be cautious. We don't know what it does. We don't know what it does in combination with all the other chemicals. So let's be cautious and say no. If you look at the grid on the right, this is from the CDC, NIOSH, and it is about eliminating toxins in the workplace, but it applies to the home as well. The least effective method is PPE, like rubber gloves and masks, the least effective. The most effective way of detoxifying an area is elimination. You physically remove the hazard out of your home. Next is substitution. So you replace it. And we're going to talk about that, ways that you can substitute for these toxic chemicals. Engineering controls, that is out of our control in the home, right? We don't get to manufacture those products. We get to manufacture our own. And administrative controls, meaning the government finally doing something, that is also out of our control. But what we can control is our own environment. And so we are going to substitute non-toxic cleaners for toxic ones. We are going to eliminate those toxics in our home. And we are going to use PPE while we are doing so, right? Those are the 3 things out of the 5 that we can control. So let's move on. What should you avoid? On the right, there is a website, ewg.org. I recommend it a lot if you've been to any of my presentations before. It stands for Environmental Working Group. It is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to research and education and exposing those things that are environmental hazards in our homes, out in the world. They are the ones, if you've ever heard of the Dirty Dozen when it comes to food pesticides, they are the ones that release the Dirty Dozen every year. And it changes from year to year, depending on what commercial agriculture is doing. They also produce the Clean 15, so 15 crops that you don't necessarily need to buy organic to avoid high pesticide residue. They also do a skincare and cosmetics database called Skin Deep. So you can look at all of the products that you put on your body. And they have a cleaning database as well. And it is listed either by product or by chemical. So you can look it up either way. And it's super helpful, right? If you're not sure what something is or if it's dangerous, you can look at your ingredient list, type it in the database, and it will give you a synopsis. So first it will give it a grade, A through F, just like school. F is bad, obviously. And it will also tell you why it has gotten that grade. Is it a skin irritant? Is it a carcinogen? Is it an endocrine disruptor? Like, it will tell you. And so there are a lot of chemical types to avoid in your products. Do not buy antibacterial products. I know that seems strange, but there are too many antibiotics out in the world now, and it has led to superbugs, right? So number one, we have MRSA present in hospitals constantly now because there's antibacterial infused plastic cutting boards and antibacterial soaps. I have news for you. Just plain old soap kills bacteria if you use it right. So we're infusing our environment with all of these antibiotics. And the fact is we need bacteria. If we didn't have bacteria, we would die. Like, it is present in our bodies, on our bodies, in our guts. We need it. And when you are constantly exposed to antibacterials, you are throwing off your particular beneficial colony on your skin and in your body that helps you digest food, that helps you protect yourself. You don't want to buy antibacterial products. Corrosive and caustic products. And anything that is known to be corrosive or caustic will say that in parentheses. That means that it's going to give you chemical burns, and you need to be careful of your eyes and your mucous membranes and your hands, obviously. And bleach, chlorine bleach. I know we've all used it since we were kids. chlorine bleach should not be in your home. It is a highly caustic chemical that actually causes huge environmental damage when it goes down the drain. There is oxygen bleach if you feel like you need to bleach your laundry. That does not do that, because when you take chlorine and you convert it through heat, what you're doing is you're creating dioxins in the environment. Dioxin is a carcinogen. And so the use of bleach contributes to dioxin in the environment, which contributes to increased cancer rates. Please do not use bleach. Oven cleaners, those terrible smelling like spray things, really bad for the environment, bad for you, bad for the environment. And drain openers, those chemical like Drano, there are alternatives to these things. And a lot of it requires maybe some upkeep and maintenance rather than waiting until there's a problem. One of the things that I use to sort of keep my drains open, because I live with a very hairy person, the shower constantly needs enzymes put down it. And the enzymes actually eat away at any grease, any soap, any hair that is starting to, layer on the sides of the drain. And so every few months, I just, overnight, I pour the enzymes down to let them feast. And that is super helpful, and it keeps my drains clean. I don't have to call a plumber, and I don't have to use horrible chemicals to open up my pipes. Oven cleaners, I don't use the self-cleaning mechanism on my stove, because that heats up the Teflon in your stove, causes carcinogens to enter the air. It also will kill my birds. And if it's going to kill my birds, long term, it's going to kill me, right? So no self-cleaning ovens and no oven cleaners, those chemicals. So what you need to do is you need to use some elbow grease. And so anytime there is a spill, clean it up right away. Don't leave it so that your stove smokes every time you cook. And one of the things that I do is I have sheet trays that are the same size as my oven racks. And I usually put them underneath whatever I'm cooking in case it bubbles over and spills out. It lands in the sheet tray, not in my oven. Just a little bit of prevention goes a really long way in avoiding mess, so that you don't have to use harsh chemicals to clean it up. I see that we have a couple chat things. What are the questions?
The first one says, what are those enzymes? And can you put them down the drain of the shower?
Yes, you can put them down any drain. They are safe for all plumbing. They are natural plant enzymes and beneficial bacteria that eat away at grease and hair and soap. I think the brand that I used was like Citrusolve or something. It's a citrus enzyme. And I don't want to touch it because citrus oils can be very caustic as well, but I just pour it straight from the bottle down the drain. Yes. And it's safe for pipes. It's safe for the environment, and it's a really great preventative. But there are other brands too. I'm not endorsing anything. Was there another one?
No, that was two questions in one.
Got it. So essential oils, I am going to put a word of precaution out for essential oils. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're natural, so they are a substitute for other kinds of fragrances, but also maybe some toxic cleaning products. I want to caution you, essential oils are chemicals. They are sourced from plants. So yes, they have a natural source, but you would never encounter the degree of constituents contained within those drops of oil in nature. So you need to make sure that they are diluted. And essential oils only diffuse properly in either alcohol or oil. So when you are using them in cleaning products, you need to first dilute them to the proper amount in alcohol or oil, depending on what kind of formula you're making. If you're making a a wood polish, oil would work, right? But if you are making a surface cleaner and you want essential oils to help you kill viruses and bacteria, you need to dilute it in alcohol and then put it in whatever method you're using, whether that's water or, you know, glycerin or whatever it is. So it's on this list because a lot of people just go overboard. Honestly, if you're using it to clean with 5 to 10% is a good ratio for essential oils, 5 to 10%, no more than that. And you certainly wouldn't want to use them undiluted. So you will see essential oils on the handout as a potential to help you remove things. But again, it will talk about, very specific amounts.
We
All
have a
right.
couple of things in the chat. Lene said, my vet advised me to stay away from candles with essential oils for my dogs. So I stay away from them myself.
Yes. So there's two things there. Diffusing essential oils means that people are inhaling them and they are getting them into their system. Not all essential oils are safe for pets. If you have cats at all, don't diffuse, because cats, the essential oil vapor will land on their fur. They lick it because that's how they bathe. They don't have the enzymes to break down any plant material. They are true carnivores. It is toxic to them. With dogs, some of them are safe, some of them are not. It's just best to avoid. And the thing about candles is you want to make sure you're using a natural wax with a natural wick. You're creating heavy metals in the air. If you're using traditional wicks, not traditional, but modern wicks, traditional wicks are cotton or paper, or a combination of the two. But you want to make sure that if you are burning candles in your home, that you're not contributing to heavy metal poisoning, and use either beeswax or soy wax, rather than paraffin candles. Those cheap Yankee candles, well, they're not even cheap anymore, right? Those Yankee candles or the things that White Barn or whatever, they're paraffin and they're gross. So yeah, avoiding those. And then was there another question?
There is. Elaine asked, what about using a diffuser with distilled water? She's currently using organic oils in a diffuser.
Yeah, diffusing, you need to use water if it's a steam diffuser. But again, you're putting it into the air, and you want to make sure that you're using proper ratios. And the diffuser itself will probably tell you what the right ratio is. But I would not run them all the time, because you don't want to be inhaling that level of chemicals all the time. But every so often, yeah, that can help eliminate viruses and bacteria in the home. It can make things smell nice. The other thing that you could do if you really like a certain smell is to get that botanical and simmer it in a pot on the stove. It will do the same thing. And the amount of chemicals that go into the air are a much lower amount because they are actually from the plant itself. They're not extracted and then concentrated and put into a little bottle. So yes, and all right. Other things to avoid, irritants. So again, irritants are required to be labeled as such on a label. It's going to cause temporary inflammation. As someone with chronic inflammation, I don't want any additional inflammation personally. Redness, itching, chemical burns, nothing that we want. And repeated exposure. Let's say you're, taking on, tackling a big cleaning job. If you have continued exposure to that irritant, you could cause cellular damage. It's not just a surface burn like a sunburn. And I mean, even with sunburns, right? If you keep doing sunburns and sun exposure, you could cause cellular damage or cancer. So you need to be cautious about how much you're exposing yourself to. Optical brighteners, which are in laundry detergents, usually, fabric softeners, things like that, things that go into your clothes, they are endocrine disruptors, and you really just want to avoid those. Anything that says they have an optical brightener in there, usually they talk about it as a selling point, right? We're going to make your colors brighter, we're going to make your whites whiter. No. and surfactants. So surfactants are the things that make things lather up. They make it so that friction easily removes oils. And, soap in and of itself is a surfactant, but when it's added surfactants, it causes a problem. There are chemicals in most to make something surfactant. And you really want to make sure that you're using surfactants that are listed as safe. And again, you can do that on the EWG site. There are surfactants that will not harm you or your immediate environment. Like I live out in the country and all of our wastewater and our sewage goes into a septic system, which is underneath part of my backyard, right? So I don't want to put toxic soup in there. You need to be careful. And if you live in a city, there's no such thing as a way. So what happens is it goes down the drain and it goes to a treatment plant, and all of those chemicals are still there causing problems. And most of them cannot be processed away. They're just entering our waste. They're entering our bodies of water after a treatment, which does not take away those chemicals. So we just need to reduce our toxic load. This is the lesson of the presentation: is stop buying these things, stop using these things. If you have these things in your home, let's learn how to dispose of them properly, and don't buy them again. Yeah. All right. The other thing that we need to think about is home furnishings, appliances, carpets, things that our homes are built with. Many of these items are now toxic. There has been a concerted effort to recycle plastic, for example, and most plastic cannot be recycled back into what it was. Let's say it's a water bottle. It starts out as food grade. Once it's recycled, it can no longer be considered food grade. So it has to go into something, right? So park benches or plastic lumber for decks, or any number of those things, or framing of windows. The thing that you should know is that it is still plastic. And while it seems like you're doing a good thing by recycling and buying that repurposed material, if they get too hot, they off gas. And when there is a fire, heaven forbid, you get all kinds of toxins released into the air. It lessens your ability to get out of the home safely. When we were kids, we would talk about, oh, if there's a fire, you need to drop to the floor and crawl because the smoke is raising. Well, if there's just toxic air all over from melting plastic, we're not going to get out as easily. So the other thing is that all of those treatments for stains, like Stain Guard and what is that called? Scotch Guard, things on upholstery and carpets, that are supposed to make it stain resistant. Those are carcinogens and they are endocrine disruptors. We do not want them. When I thought, oh, you know what? I really want one of those really fancy recliners, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to pick out one. And I'll be able to sit there and enjoy, watching a movie in my fancy recliner. I could find one company to buy a brand new piece of furniture from, one, that would not immediately treat it. And by default, they do. You have to tell them not to. So anytime you buy a new piece of furniture, like if you have the option of saying, I do not want stain prevention on my upholstery, definitely take it. Same with carpets. If you're installing new carpet, definitely make sure that it is not stain treated. Often that's not possible. And so alternatives are regular floors with area rugs. Area rugs generally are not treated with these things. So personally, like I moved into my home in December, and the upstairs has carpet. We're going to be ripping it out very soon. Not a fan of carpet, not only because of the chemicals involved, but because you can't really get them clean. And I live with someone who has asthma, and it is impossible to keep them from getting bronchitis when we're on the indoor kind of part of the year where it's cold. And we moved in December. So I cannot wait until we're ripping all of this out and putting down wood floors, and then, putting spot rugs in different places. It is not something that we wanted, but this house was perfect for us. So we got it knowing that we were going to be ripping out carpet. Appliances. So when you have a lot of gadgets and gizmos in your kitchen, you need to be careful. In the United States, a lot of these are coated with nonstick coatings. That's waffle irons, deep fryers, bread makers, all of those little one-trick ponies that you have in your kitchen. Make sure that they are not treated with nonstick. It takes a little bit of due diligence to find an appliance that does not have these things in the United States. In other countries, they have separate supply chains, and those supply chains include no nonstick, right? Sometimes I was actually considering buying a waffle iron from Germany, and it would have cost me $400. And I was like, $400 waffles. Oh my goodness. No. So I eat pancakes, but I do like waffles. And I did find that I can get a really old-timey cast iron waffle iron now. And so that is what I'm doing. And that's only $30. So I'm going to season my cast iron waffle iron, just like I have my cast iron pans. And that is how I will have my waffles. So sometimes it just takes a while. Speaking of pots and pans, no nonstick. So I love cast iron, and a seasoned cast iron skillet. It takes a little bit of learning on how to season it and maintain that seasoning and how to clean it. But a seasoned cast iron pan is just as good at frying an egg as a nonstick pan. And the things that I tend to use for pots and pans, first is cast iron, second is stainless steel, third is copper, which is wicked expensive, but is a beautiful metal to cook with. I use Pyrex pans for baking. What else do I use? That's really the main things that I use to cook and bake with. I see possible questions in the chat. Yeah. Let's see.
I'm not seeing a new chat. I'm sorry, Lily.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I must not have clicked on it.
Oh, it just popped up. Can you
What types
repeat?
of
Yeah,
of
so
pots
Lynn
and
asked,
pans?
can you repeat the types of pans? Repeat
Yes.
that, what types again?
My number one pick is cast iron. I will give you the caveat that cast iron requires a little bit of knowledge, but YouTube is there. YouTube University will teach you how to take care of cast iron. But the other thing is that they're heavy. So like, I have a history of carpal tunnel. And so I usually use two hands to move my biggest cast iron skillet onto the stove. But love that. Stainless steel is my next favorite. You can easily get stainless steel pans that are pretty affordable. Affordable being a relative term, because everything has gone up. Inflation is crazy right now. Copper is super expensive, but is a lifetime investment. I use Pyrex for baking, as well as stainless steel. Those are my favorites. Stainless steel is lighter than cast iron, but cast iron is a really great non-stick surface. So I have cast iron skillets, and I have cast iron Dutch ovens. My Dutch ovens are cast iron with an enamel coating on the inside. Le Creuset makes one, and Lodge makes one. They're wonderful. You can bake bread in them. You can make big stews or soups in them. Really lovely pans. A Dutch oven is a Dutch oven Teflon. You can get a Teflon Dutch oven, but I don't recommend getting anything that has Teflon coating. Teflon is a carcinogen and an endocrine disruptor and pollutes the environment to boot. So you can get a Dutch oven. That's the style of pot. It's a big pot, usually 8 quarts or more, and it has a big heavy lid. You can use it on the stovetop and you can put it in the oven. And so I will bake like big loaves of crusty bread in it. I will also make big, pots of soup in it. Dutch ovens are great. Yeah.
Lily,
Um,
what about a ceramic coated um, cast iron? Is ceramic coating okay on cast iron?
so the term ceramic coating is a misleading term. It's not really ceramic. And there have been 0 tests on how safe that coating is. It is a polymer, meaning a form of hardened plastic that can be heated. It is not really ceramic. So I have avoided those. And I recently watched a YouTube video because I wanted to know what all the scuttlebutt was about. I have all my pots and pans. I don't need to buy anymore, but I was interested because I'm interested in topics like this. And I highly recommend, doing some research. And the thing is that none of these companies have to disclose what's in their coating right now. So I avoid it because I don't know, right? Precautionary principle. That's kind of where I'm at. And so all of these things that contribute to the building of our home, all those laminate floors, paint is another possible toxin. There is non-toxic paint out there, but you have to go and search it out. Your mattress, when you buy a new mattress, it off-gases and has toxic chemicals in it. Insulation for our homes tends to be toxic. There are ways to insulate our home that are not toxic. However, the stuff that you just go down and get at Lowe's, not great for our health. Stain treatments for wood and things like that. Again, there's so much. Whenever you're making a purchase, the burden of knowledge, I guess, is that whenever you're making these purchases, now you have to research and figure out, okay, is this bad for me and my family? And often if it's super convenient and you can just pick it up at the store, the answer is yes, which, sucks. But there are ways to find non-toxic things, and it starts by looking for non-toxic paint alternatives or old-fashioned paint. There's a thing called milk paint that people used to paint their homes with, and that is a non-toxic paint. There's a lot out there, but that means that sometimes it can get overwhelming in terms of options, right? If you ever have any questions about a product or needing an alternative, you can email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat. I am happy to answer questions. It's my commitment to being a community herbalist, being of service to my community. Holler at lilykunning.com. Please feel free to email me with questions or concerns. And I highly recommend doing a home audit. And don't overwhelm yourself. Start with a category of things. So today we're talking about cleaning supplies. Start with what's under your kitchen sink, underneath your bathroom sink, in your garage, right? All those cleaning supplies. Let's do an audit. You can use EWG as a source to look up things, check them off your list. If they are considered, a D or an F in terms of health, I recommend getting rid of them, calling your waste disposal and asking for a has waste pickup, put them in a box all together, out on the curb for a pickup, and they will dispose of them for you. And then just don't get those things again. You can start with cleaners, then you can look at your body care and your cosmetics, and then you can look at what your home is made of and how you can, if you're thinking about replacing some things, what alternatives you can to replace toxic ones. And, it takes a while. Like I said, I just moved into a new house and I had already detoxified my previous houses. I don't have any toxic cleaning supplies and I don't have any toxic body care, but what is in this home I've got pressed particle board underneath these carpets. I've got, framing lumber creating the frame of the structure. There's only so much I can do, but as I'm doing it, like when I decide to repaint, I'm going to choose non-toxic alternatives. When I'm replacing my floor, we're looking at bamboo or cork. They're more expensive, but they are lifetime investments. That's kind of what I'm doing. Nobody is going to be able to get it all done unless they're a millionaire right away, but you can do what you can do, and you can start reducing your risks systemically and systematically. So that is good. Thoughts on companies like Norwex and their safety claims? Are those e-cloth things, Norwex? Honestly, I haven't looked into it because I know what works for me and I haven't invested. It seems like they're very overpriced, for one thing. I looked at them once and I was like, really? Because honestly, a little baking soda and a little Castile soap and a little white vinegar and a sponge goes a long way. You can do almost everything with those things. And you will see in the handout that is provided to you after this session that you don't need expensive stuff to get your house actually clean. I use baking soda to scrub my tubs and my toilet. I use vinegar and I infuse it with thyme, the herb, to clean surfaces so that there's no bacteria and viruses on the surfaces of things, because thyme kills more stuff than bleach. So I infuse that. I also put it in my laundry because I have a teenager and the socks are gross. And I use biodegradable Castile-based soaps for laundry, for dishes, so that I know when it goes out into my septic field that I am not polluting my environment. There's just easy ways and recipes that I am giving you so that you can create non-toxic alternatives and you will save money. Honestly, it requires a little bit of attitude adjustment and ways of cleaning, like adjustments to how you clean. Like it's not a spray my shower down with this thing, walk away, and then come back and wipe it off. Like that is not going to happen. But you're not leaving a toxic residue that you're breathing in when you take a shower either. So it just requires a change in how we think about cleaning. It requires a change in what we purchase, which is not that big of a deal. And you can make up batches of things and keep them underneath your sink, just like, picking it up at the supermarket and putting it underneath your sink. That's what we do here at this house. We've got a lot of stuff underneath the sink. We have animals and a teenager, kind of like having another animal, that make a mess, and we need to have things ready to clean up messes. So that's what we do. All right, so part of the audit that I mentioned, if you are interested in some wellness coaching, I have a 6-month program, and one of them is the entire month is on detox. And we every week have a project that I send you via email. So every month you get a webinar, kind of like this, but longer and more in detail about a topic with Q&A. And then every week of that month, you're going to get new readings, new videos, new assignments to start making your wellness more optimized. So we have a session on nutrition and diet. We have one on movement. We have one on detox, sleep hygiene. There's 6 different topics that we approach. If you are interested in that, I can do that. And new enrollees, $100 of their enrollment fee goes to Cancer Support Community, because I designed this because of my work with Cancer Support Community. I kept getting the same questions over and over, and I need to repeat the same topics over and over. And I wanted to reach more people. And so this is a way for me to do that in a consistent way. So enough sales. I just wanted to let you know that that is a possibility, and you can email me at holler@lilykunning.com, or just go to lilykunning.com and go to that page to sign up if you're interested. And next, thank you. So some resources for you, ewg.org. Again, They have databases, they have articles, they have videos. They spend all of their programming budget on researching these items that we are surrounded by. Haven Herbs is the apothecary I formulate for. If you're looking for a ready-made remedy or tonic or body care item to replace a toxic one, Haven Herbs is a great place to go. lilykunning.com, that's me. I do consults, I do formulas, I do wellness coaching. And Root and Rhizome is new. I'm very excited about Root and Rhizome. Our next class is on hugelkultur, which is a form of sustainable permaculture raised beds. And we're going to be teaching that one in May. So yeah, I am happy to take any more questions. We have a few minutes left in our time. I hope I didn't go too fast for anyone. I was trying to stay on time and make sure we had time for Q&A.
Lily, we did have a question in regards to your wellness class. There's a question on the cost of the program.
The program is $600, and again, 100 of that will go to Cancer Support Community. So it'll be a total of 500. And if you don't want to finance it yourself, there are installment plans that you can do. I try and make it affordable to as many people that need it as possible. Mm-hmm.
Can you?
Any other questions? Hi, Lene.
Sorry, I can wait. Mine's a little off topic, so go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask if anybody had other questions, so this is perfect timing.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask if everybody else has asked their questions about this topic. I kind of wanted to ask Lily about a different topic that others may benefit from hearing, but essentially I'm having a surgery later